Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Mod Warframe. Today we're going to take a look at the newly released burst fire rifle, the Tiberon. Now the Tiberon was the latest in Tenno reinforcements released in update 14.9.0 and is a Tenno based burst fire weapon with a 3-round burst. Now the weapon itself boasts reasonable damage at 60 damage a shot, with half being in puncture damage and the rest being split evenly between slash and impact, making this weapon ideally suited for taking on the Grineer. Another thing this weapon boasts is very good accuracy, with very little spread between the 3 shots in the burst. Now the damage plus the decent magazine size plus the good accuracy means that you can put down effective and accurate sustained fire onto groups of enemies that you might run across. Now with some of the other burst fire weapons like the Sybaris Prime I recently reviewed, due to the spread and the recoil during the burst it can be very difficult to keep all the rounds on target. Not something that the Tiberon has any problems with it whatsoever. Now the weapon does come with some drawbacks, chief of which is the almost non-existent critical chance of 5% and the even lower status chance of 2.5%. Now this means that realistically you have very few options as to how to mod this weapon, as I shall come on to later. Now another drawback it has is something that plagues pretty much all burst fire weapons, and that is time to kill. Now you are not always going to need 2 full bursts to kill someone. An enemy might only take 4 shots to be killed, meaning that you need to fire an entire other burst just to pick up the kill. And now, as I've said, this is not a specific problem to the Tiberon, but something that all burst fire weapons suffer from, and is something that should be taken into account. Now the Tiberon itself is something different in the world of weapons in Warframe. Firstly, it's the first primary weapon to require another weapon as part of the building process, with the Tiberon actually requiring a later to build. Secondly, it's the first weapon to be released outside of the dojo that requires a former. Now both of these mean it's actually a fairly expensive build, with the other components being 650 plastids and 600 rapido, obviously alongside the former components and the materials needed to craft the Latron. So let's move on to starting to mod the Tiberon. To start with, we're going to go with the Grineer build, and we're going to start with heavy caliber in the V polarity. We're going to go with split chamber and serration, and then we're going to go with Hellfire and Stormbringer for that radiation damage. Now against the Corpus we're going to go with heavy caliber again, split chamber serration. This time we're going with Stormbringer and Cryo rounds for magnetic damage against your heavily shielded Corpus units. Now for the Void and also for your infested units, we're going to go again heavy caliber serration split chamber, but they're going this time with infected clip and Stormbringer. Now the reason I'm going to be using heavy caliber is that the accuracy on the weapon is so high that using heavy caliber and the negative effects from heavy caliber really don't actually have a huge impact on the overall accuracy of the weapon. So the damage increase of heavy caliber definitely outweighs the negative effects of the loss of accuracy. Okay, and now on to my recommendation as to whether I feel this weapon is worth putting the effort and the potato into. And the answer to that is not really no. The world of the burstfire weapons has a number of very solid weapons that just outshine the Tiberon in almost every light. One such example is the Sybaris. Now the Sybaris was introduced back in update 13.3 and is also a Tenno burstfire rifle. It's got similar build costs after the research is completed, and it just outshines the Tiberon in every way apart from the magazine size and the fire rate. Now the Tiberon comes with 70 damage, evenly split between the 3 damage types, rather than the 60 that the Tiberon gets, which is heavily favoured towards the puncture. However, the thing that sets the Sybaris apart from the Tiberon and makes it into an overall more rounded weapon is the critical chance and status chance. Now the Sybaris comes with a base critical chance of 25% and base status of 10%. Now what this means is the Sybaris is going to do more damage from the crits, and even if it doesn't crit, it will still do more damage with the 10 extra, and also be more useful at applying the procs due to the status chance that it comes with, taking the overall damage from the Sybaris way above anything the Tiberon can achieve. Now does this mean that I feel the Tiberon is a bad weapon? No, not at all. The Tiberon is more than adequate for taking on any enemy on the star chart, and even up to tier 3 void exterminates, although the damage really does start to drop off at that point. What I am saying is that there are weapons out there that do what the Tiberon advertises, however they just do it so much better. Now, as to whether I feel that the weapon deserves former or not, pretty obviously my answer is no. Save it for one of the other burst weapons if you wish to use the burst fire, such as the Sybaris or even arguably the burst on prime. They both just perform better up until higher levels and just way beyond anything that the Tiberon can realistically achieve. So in essence, if you want a weapon that's fun to play around with while killing enemies on the star chart, the Tiberon works just fine, but for higher level, invest elsewhere. Just a quick public service announcement from myself. When crafting the Tiberon, be very careful when you select the weapon to use in your build. If you have the later on Wraith that you managed to get from the event, it is going to give you the option to use the Wraith in your build. So just be very careful which later on you select, so you don't accidentally use your shiny Wraith in this build. As always guys, many thanks for watching. Please remember to leave a like and subscribe, and I shall see you in the next episode.